Well, hello again, and welcome back to the Electrify Expo podcast. This is Matt Teskey. I'm here with Joe Boris, and he's laughing at me because I just jumped right in. This is episode 107. We got a lot to talk about, like usual. New OEMs coming out with new EVs, conversation about things that are shifting the landscape for infrastructure, and of course, other cars coming out that are getting attention that probably should be an EV platform. So I guess where do you want to kick it off, Joe?
I think we start talking with this new Nissan Aria or Araya. I haven't gotten a consensus on the pronunciation yet, but this is big news. So this is Nissan's second electric vehicle that's, pure electric vehicle to the US. The Leaf has been out, as we all know, for maybe about 10 years now. They're in their third generation, I guess. And that's always been a good little car, but it's always been that. It's been this like small hatchbacky kind of thing. It's never really been a mainstream vehicle in the sense that like a full-size sedan or an SUV crossover or pickup truck would be in the United States. Well, this is different. This is a 5-passenger crossover. This is right in that sweet spot, that Ford Explorer / Jeep Grand Cherokee type of size. It's fully electric. It is gorgeous. It's all-wheel drive. You look at the interior of this thing, it is like all screens everywhere. I mean, this looks like a real contender.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the cool part about what they showed is that they did their homework, and for all the questions they've been asked about what was going to come next after Leaf, this is a good answer. They set the stage to show that they're listening to the marketplace, listening to the market. They're seeing the marketplace and what's shifting. It's going to be a direct competitor with Model Y, Mach-E, the Volvo Recharge that's coming, anything that's in that vein of like CUV, SUV type size. But the functionality is great, but it also is an attractive car. I don't think I read anything from anybody that said, I don't like how it looks. I think that's obviously a great jumping off point. It's got some, again, they've got things to play off of too that were in Leaf that they could just leverage in this. ProPilot, people seem to really like that. I like the name of that better than Tesla's Autopilot. even Germany finally said, you guys can't do that anymore.
No, I think that's a topic.
Oh, it is. Yeah, well, yeah, actually it is a topic. But and again, we've got little details inside of the vehicle too. It's a thermal managed battery pack. It's not air cooled, which means it's going to have a better opportunity for longevity. And that's something that they had just kind of been casually not changing in the Leaf for so long. And it'll be curious to see what happens to the Leaf after this. Even in some of their promo information they have, they don't really show the Leaf in future promos about where their brand is going. So it may just pass away and the Aria or Araya will be their flagship EV, which frankly, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. You're looking at this thing and it ticks all the right boxes, right? Especially, like we are living further up north than I think a lot of people. This is, all-wheel drive, but it also has Nissan's like torque vectoring, right? So it's not quite to the point like the Rivian where it can do a tank turn. I guess theoretically it could. But I mean, they've shown the development mule, which was a Leaf, showing off how the system works, and they've said, look at how the car dances through the cones, and man, it really looks like it's dancing through the cones. Yeah. They have really, I think, you said done their homework. I think that's the right phrase. They've really done their homework to make this something that I think is going to be desirable. And you mentioned that it was aimed at the Tesla. Yeah, okay, we all see that, but I think this, because it's electric, it's going to be compared to the Tesla.
Sure.
The comment of the Mach-E, I think, was right on. Nissan in the early 90s, late 80s, they were known as the four-door sports car. Like the Maxima was the four-door sports car. My favorite car to this day that I had was a G20T Infiniti. That thing moved, and it was a great little car. I see a lot of that kind of DNA in this, and that's something I think that's been missing in Nissan for a long time.
There's already conversation of a Nismo platform for Aria or Araya, which I think is also very important. I think the sport enthusiast element has to start coming into real life in these production models, especially from legacy brands. So the more they can leverage that, I mean, same thing from Ford with Mach-E, whatever they can do along those lines as well. I don't know. I'm convinced that this is going to be a very popular vehicle. The other vehicle that we didn't bring up that will be competing against this is the Volkswagen ID.4 when it comes to market, which is the ID Cross concept.
Yeah, this is like that, what used to be the Ford Taurus, Chevy Malibu, Honda Accord, Toyota Camry space. This is kind of what that's evolved to. So there's probably going to be 20 of these things that are vying for your dollars. That ID.4 is going to come up again later in the show. We're going to have another round of conversation about that. The main thing about this car, and this is kind of snuggled away in kind of the fine print and, reading between the lines of this Nissan Araya, is not only does it have between 226 and 300 miles of range, depending on the battery, it's a divergent from the Leaf in the sense that it doesn't have the same kind of charging. Nissan has gone they've always sort of fought against the current on the current. That's an electricity joke. They've always kind of gone against the current by using this. I've always said it CHAdeMO charging system, and it's now they've gone to this. I believe it's called CCS. Right now, Matt, this is your universe. This is your 9 to 5 is in EV charging. So I'm going to let you have this.
I mean, Nissan finally did what I think a lot of people have been begging them to do, which is basically stop swimming upstream. There's been a lot of movement happening in North America with regard to what platform was being used for charging. So we've had the 3 fast charging standards for basically the last 7 to 10 years, CHAdeMO being the first. And this is a big part of what I work on every day is how do we help differentiate that by helping people understand what these options look like. And so for Nissan to say, we're going to go away from what we've been doing and use what is the North American, arguably the standard here, which is called CCS, you then basically say, okay, well, moving forward, you've got every vehicle platform using the same fast charging standard in North America, except for Tesla. And so you still do have the need to differentiate that, but it's going to be more simplified moving forward, which is important. That's going to help the marketplace. The thing that is unique is their fast charging standard that they developed, it did have the ability to both accept power and give off power in the sense it was V to G essentially. You could basically use the vehicle as a backup battery with their fast charging standard. That does not yet exist in the standard here in North America that they just switched to. For them, I think they probably look at it as a step down for what they're going to sell here in North America. But in Japan and in Asia, they're going to maintain keeping with their standard that they've had forever. They just decided to finally say, okay, in North America, we're going to just go with what they're using. And Tesla will then maintain being its own option. But again, we'll see what things look like in 5 years. But this was a huge turning point for standardization for fast charging here in the States. So
you made the comment that Tesla still doesn't use CCS. I feel like I read an article, or more accurately, wrote an article a little while ago about a CCS adapter that was coming from Tesla to enable their, you talked about red and green pumps, red and green outlets, right?
Yep.
So to enable the Tesla to be able to go kind of anywhere. Does that really exist going the other way or no?
Well, here's the catch is when you're referring to what they call CCS for fast charging standards, there is CCS type 1, which is in North America, and CCS type 2, which is in Europe. In Europe, Tesla had been utilizing a portion of the shape of that plug on their vehicles basically since day one. So they were able to create an adapter to work with the new standard protocols in Europe to work with their legacy vehicles and their older vehicles. So that adapter for them was pretty straightforward. Here in North America, the plug type that Tesla developed is basically for North America. It's extremely elegant. Frankly, as far as I'm concerned, it's the most user-friendly plug type that does exist right now. They have really invested into their fast charging infrastructure and even their destination infrastructure. So I don't know how soon we're going to see Tesla switch over to saying they're going to support the CCS or green fast charging platform here in North America. I think they're going to stick with red for a while, and we'll see how that plays. Also, I think there might even be a physical design hindrance there.
So you can charge your Tesla at the green ones?
No. So Tesla has a blue fast charging adapter, but for fast charging, they don't have it. And I don't think they're going to have it. I don't see them doing it that quickly. They have an adapter for standard charging at green stations that isn't fast. You can do that at home or at little stations here and there. But for fast charging, I don't know how soon they're going to come out with it. But again,
you don't see it.
Yeah.
It just seems like big news, right? I mean, a lot of people have said that the big issue, and I'm sure people have said a lot of things about electrification, but I think one of the things that's been pointed at as a big hurdle, a big stumbling block for a mainstream adoption of electric vehicles has been a standardized charging network. And it seems like we're getting, when you go from 3 options to 2 options, like your Chevy Bolt is CCS, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like when you have General Motors, when you have Ford, when you have Nissan, theoretically the Honda EV coming out is going to have this CCS standard. They're all going to be fairly standardized. At some point it's going to be Tesla versus everyone else, right? And how long can you play? I mean, I was about to say how long can you play that game, but I've got a whole bunch of Apple products that use their own proprietary connectors and no one seems to care.
I got to be honest. I think, especially here in North America, I mean, Tesla's very well playing with the standards that exist in other parts of the world, in Asia and in Europe, for example. They are using those standards. But in North America, it is legitimately the wild, wild west when it comes to what are we using for infrastructure. And Tesla basically said, In North America, we're not waiting for this to happen. If they'd have been waiting for standardization to really come together, there's no way they'd be where they are right now as a brand and as a company.
I agree 100%. And you made the comment about Tesla decided not to wait, and that's what gave them an edge. I remember vividly, maybe I want to say 2013. So about 7 years ago, I was at a thing called Further with Ford. Oddly enough, I was there with Chelsea Sexton, who is super famous in the electronic vehicle world for her role in Who Killed the Electric Car and the GM EV1. She was just awesome. And we were sitting there at this table, and this other young lady that we knew, Susanna, asked Ford, when are you going to kind of make a decision of electrification of, at that point, E85 still seemed like it might be viable. And, made that comment. The response from the Ford executives was, we're going to wait until there's a federal mandate, until there's a national energy policy that says this is which way we want you to go, and then we'll commit to it. And we were just shaking our heads like, why are we here if this is what you're going to say? Like, you're just going to bring us all here, all these press people, and just say, yeah, we're going to wait and see. Like, you could have done that in an email. You didn't have to fly us out to Detroit.
Sure. Well, and the problem is, and again, and you mentioned Chelsea too, and she's been working in this industry for so long. She has tons of stories about this where we don't want to just keep hearing PR. We want to hear what your plans are and not excuses for why you feel like you can just kick the can down the road. And Tesla was the one company that said, well, we recognize that's the approach that's going to happen from a federal perspective, from a policy perspective. And if we wait, that is the opposite of accelerating an industry by definition.
Yes.
So that's why they did what they did. And by their doing that, it truly did help then accelerate the conversation. If it wasn't for Tesla, we wouldn't be having the conversations we're having about these other brands and products. Just 100% true. That doesn't mean that they're perfect. They're Apple-esque, like thumbing their nose at everybody, like we're going to do it our way. Yes, and it could then end up still causing some issues with user experience and how we discuss this with customers. But I think that I still think they deserve more praise than criticism. So.
You know what, man? You've got a 10-second family car that starts every morning and has a full warranty. If the bumper falls off, the bumper falls off. You got to make some sacrifices, right?
Well, I also think that at that point, it's like everybody that buys a Tesla, there's still an element to you are buying in as an early adopter. Yeah, if my rear bumper flew off, I'd be upset about it. But let's be honest about the use case and percentages of how often it's happened. It's not the entire fleet. It's happened. They need to resolve it, and hopefully they do.
Yeah, those people should get over it. They got a cool car. That's how I see it. So I do want to kind of touch on this. We've been talking about accelerating an industry. We've been talking about, looking forward, not backward, and onward, not downward, and forward, not upward, or something.
Where are you going with this?
I'm going someplace with it. So we have brands like Tesla looking forward. We have conversations with Volkswagen where they're talking about where the competition is coming from the future. They're looking at California. They're looking at China. And then you have what we keep calling the legacy brands. And I don't want to beat Ford up too badly because they're doing great stuff with the Mach-E and the Cobra Jet and things like that. But they've had a big product release this week. It was 100% backward looking, in my opinion, short-sighted, cynical cash grab. And that is the new Bronco. I mean, this is such a cynical cash grab that the original plan was to launch it on O.J. Simpson's birthday.
Wow, really?
Oh, yeah.
That's verified?
Of course it's verified. That was a real thing. They had to change the launch date because everybody flipped out.
That's bananas. Holy cow. Okay. Again, so actually to that point, though, in a lot of ways, yes. At the end of the day, these are businesses. They're in business to make money. And how do they do that? And how do they leverage what they have as brand equity the most to do so? And to either reinvent or either find ways to just drum up the profits. And I think that what they designed and developed, I was having a conversation with a few people about it because people were losing their minds over it. Everybody in the auto sector was like, oh my God, did you see this? And to the credit of Ford, they got people talking. They did it. They executed the product in a way that got people talking. So that's good. My assessment was, is it really that we've lowered our bar so much for expectation of innovation from these companies that literally if it's a nostalgia play with the right wrapper that it actually, quote, wows people? I think that's pretty disappointing.
I mean, I feel like we should have learned that lesson with the new Beetle and the PT Cruiser, 20 years ago where, when these things come out, there is that wave of nostalgia. There are those people that turn up and buy it. But then it very quickly drops off. Yeah. And I feel like with the Bronco, this is a lot of money invested by Ford into a vehicle that is going to I believe, very quickly take off. And then in another year or two, once that initial demand is satisfied, it's going to drop down. And then rather than having a vehicle that's going to, like let's say the Wrangler sells 40,000 units a year, I don't know the actual number, you're not going to have 40,000 Broncos and 40,000 Wranglers. You're going to have maybe 20,000 Wranglers and 20,000 Broncos, or
Right.
probably 30,000 Wranglers and 10,000 Broncos.
Right. It may not be that stark of a line in the sand. I think this might have inspired some other people that were looking for a 4x4 or an off-road vehicle to some sense. Again, I think execution of the styling of the product, I think they hit a home run. And that's why a lot of people were talking. It's not innovative. They, as you described, they played their card on what they knew they could do to drum up excitement and get cash in the door. And they did a great job of doing so. But don't call it innovative. How's modern? Okay, fine, maybe aesthetically, but it's not really all that new, aside from the fact that it came out this week. Give it 6 months and see how people keep talking about this. And they're not going to be as hyped on it. It's like the FRS when it came out from Scion. Massive excitement, little sports car, affordable, and it was a huge hit for the first few years and then completely just fell off. I think
Do they still make that?
It's the Toyota 86, and Subaru, I believe, is still making the BRZ. It's the sister car to it, but it hasn't changed in 9 years.
No, I haven't thought about that car in years. I think that's a really good comparison to it. Actually, I think that's what we're going to end up with. What is the most frustrating part of all of this is if they had just launched it electric, you might have made the comment that this is Ford finally finding a way to play to their strengths, to build on their heritage, and still innovate and look forward. And you got none of that, man. I mean, the skin on this thing, you could have put this skin on, a Ford Ranger 20 years ago and had the same kind of hype. I just don't see it.
I agree with you 100% on that. I do. I think that they missed a huge opportunity to make this as an electric platform. Even the conversation of being just a plug-in hybrid and offering just like a small battery to do, hey, use electricity to get out to the trails and then use gas on the trails or something. Even that is not there.
Yeah. Or the other way, where you have a lot of these trails that won't allow internal combustion vehicles, especially out in California when it's real dry. Hey, it's electric. Just take it.
Put it in hold mode, get out there and then only drive electric on the trails. And all these feel like missed opportunities. I couldn't stomach people saying this was innovative. It was not. It was a well-planned product launch. That's what this was. And that's fine. That's business, but it's not.
Yeah. And you can't even say that the business play was innovative because it was just the same play that Volkswagen did with the new Beetle.
Exactly. That's all this is. And somebody tried to explain to me like all the different things were so amazingly innovative about the Bronco. How it was like, you can take the doors off and put it inside. You could do, he was listing off all these various things about like, how you could set the gearing on the drivetrain. And I was like, time out. That exists. They just packaged it together. That's not innovation.
Yeah. But it's called a process patent.
Right, exactly. But I don't see that in the same way here as pulling off the shelf parts or just saying, take the doors off and throw it inside. And this same guy was trying to say all these great things about the Bronco and then said, and what's the Cybertruck made of steel? And I'm like, do you really not understand the difference of drivetrain?
Yeah. I mean, people joke and laugh and talk about, or maybe weep openly in the street about there being two Americas. I think there's definitely two car enthusiasts, right? Like there's,
sure.
And we touched on this a little bit last week, about the professional motorsports guys and the motorsports enthusiasts, and the professional guys wish the cars were quieter so they could hear each other. And the enthusiasts wish the cars were louder so they could hear them better.
I want to feel my heart explode when that thing goes by.
Yeah.
Hey, I get that. I do. But go to a theme park for that kind of stuff. I don't know. But to your point, no, this is very specific. It is those two different types of understandings of what we're talking about. I'm not going to look down on anybody for that. They just simply don't understand the other side.
I thought you were going to say diss. I really thought you were going to say I'm not going to diss. Yeah.
Come on, dude. That's hogwash. I'm not going to bring out words like that. It happened.
All right. I swore I wasn't going to talk over you this week, and I just did it to throw diss into the conversation. So
it was worth it. It was totally worth it.
It was worth it. I think we can kind of sum that up and just say Ford missed the boat and move on. So
I want to see him put a battery in it. Okay, I'm done. Okay.
They're not gonna. They'll buy into Rivian and they'll put a Bronco body on a Rivian.
Fine. Coach builders, man, they've existed forever.
Speaking of coach builders, man, that was slick. That was a segue right there. Not the two-wheeled scooter kind. Wow, Matt Teskey batting 1,000 today. So
I'd like to thank the Academy.
that was good. That was good. So speaking of coach builders, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the term coach builder, back in the early days of the automobile, we're talking the 19-teens, 1920s, manufacturers like Ford, Rolls-Royce, REO, which ran some Oldsmobile. So REO Speedwagon was actually a car of boys and girls. I feel like the girls knew that though. Like
They probably did.
they knew. They're smart. They're like way smarter than us.
That is also very true.
Oh, it's terrible. It's like, I have conversations with my wife, and I'm like, "Why are you married to me?" Like,
exactly. Yeah. This is two guys talking cars every week, and both of us like subconsciously always admitting to ourselves we married up.
oh yeah, there's no question of that. Like I asked my wife if she listened to the podcast. She's like, "No," and I'm like, "Oh, thank God."
I really don't want you to see what actually happens in my brain on a regular basis out on the internet for the world to hear.
We can do this in secret. It's like sneak into the basement, like cars. So anyway, we had these coach builders. So what they would make as a car maker was a chassis. It was a rolling frame. It had a transmission, had an engine, had some suspension, and they would then send it out to a coach builder. The coach builder would build the body of the car, usually on the frame, build the body on the frame, and then, appoint the interior, make the seats and all that. And that was really a popular way to go almost into the 1940s. And even then, it wasn't until the early 1950s that the unibody came into play. The body and the chassis were kind of stressed member of the thing. That sort of coach building disappeared. But one thing about electrification is that, what is old is new again, right? So a lot of these companies, specifically Volkswagen, is building what they're calling like a roller skate. It's a battery pack that looks like a skateboard. This is a battery pack. It's flat. It's low. It can be ordered in any width and length. Then the suspension components are on each corner. The electric motors are there as well. And they're offering this if, a coach builder wanted to come up and build their own vehicle on this frame. And Henrik Fisker, who has been quite a character in the early days of electrification here, has announced that his new company will begin building their Ocean SUVs on the Volkswagen skateboard. Matt Teskey, go.
When I heard the news, the first thing that crossed my mind, and I made this comment, to people that were chatting about it on social media as well. I said, so just to be clear, all the claims that were made about the battery and the charging, experience and the range and everything else related to the Ocean concept and the previous vehicle concept were based on nothing. That bothered me a little, but at the same time, Fisker he's played a role in the EV conversation for a long time. He was a part of the original team of Tesla for designing Model S, and then said, "Hey, you're moving on," and then he started his own company, and he's maintained being a part of the conversation. I think that this move is extremely smart for him, because I think if he can leverage his Fisker name and his design capabilities with a platform that is going to be very, very reliable from an EV perspective, hell yeah, smart move, do it. It'll be interesting to see as you described, like how coach building kind of was there. It has faded. It turned into we own our brand, we own everything. But EVs lend to coach building. I really think that's true. One of the first people I ever talked to about the EV space, they said, "Oh yeah, Tesla's just going to be a battery company. They're never going to actually be a car company." Now, I think Tesla has changed that conversation. I think they've proven they are actually a car company, but at their heart and soul, they are more battery and energy than anything. If Volkswagen can take that position and offer that platform up to more people around the world, that's huge. And if Fisker's going to take advantage, hell yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and I think it's worth bringing up that, Volkswagen owns a lot of brands. So if they can kind of prove out the concept, rather, if they can have somebody else foot the bill for proving the concept,
yes,
now all of a sudden, maybe a Lamborghini branded electric car is possible. Maybe, a couple Audis here and there are possible. And it's all being built essentially off of the same skateboard. I think that's pretty exciting.
I think it's cool. Yeah. And this gets back to our BYD conversation a few episodes back about Ford. Are people going to think of the fact that it's a BYD powered vehicle? Are they going to care that much? And to be honest, I think this is another example where people are going to still think, no, I don't care. Like where was the brand born?
Yeah, and Volkswagen's already kind of proven out with the experiment with Audi, which became then the experiment with Bentley, that their buyers really don't care what's under the hood or what logo is stamped onto the parts, as long as the skin is differentiated enough and the brand has enough I don't want to say credibility when it comes to a badge engineered car, but let's call it cachet.
Sure. People that are buying into those brands, they really see it as a fashion statement for them, more so than the performance aspects and everything that's underneath that makes it what it is. They really do see themselves as, I mean, how many conversations have you had with people? Look, my family's a Ford family. Like we buy Fords, you know?
Yeah, less and less. I think there's still a couple of guys, you know, especially when I was working for Harley Davidson, there was still a lot of guys that, you know, were Harley people that identified with the brand, but I really think Harley's the last one of those to go. I certainly can't imagine describing myself as being a Volvo family or a Honda family. I can't imagine my kids would ever do something like that.
Well, maybe not that exact language, but you have something that is even almost subliminally built into you. I mean, even my in-laws, I mean, they drive Volvos, and
they should.
Apparently, as they should. But when my brother-in-law, when it was time for him to get a new car, he went out and got an S40 because that's what his parents have been driving, and he was like, I think it's a nice car. I think that still will be something that carries out, but I think younger generations also are looking to make their own mark on what they deem is theirs. And we've had this conversation about where will these legacy brands find themselves in that conversation. And maybe they could leverage the fact that they're branching out from that Coach platform and say, we're different. We're not just about who we were. We're also this new thing too. Time will tell.
Yeah. You know, that's one of those things that, you know, we love talking about it and they like editing it out.
That's true, Chris. Leave that one in, man. It's still an important part.
Well, Chris isn't here today, so we can say all kinds of crazy stuff.
That's true. WAMBC.
WAMBC. So I think, you know, I'm really excited about this Fisker thing now. Fisker did the Fisker Karma, which obviously became the Karma Revero. He was involved with some of the more striking BMW and Mercedes concept cars in the early 2000s. And I think at one point he was actually sued by Tesla, wasn't he? When the Fisker Karma came out, they said, hey, the car you designed for us wasn't as nice as the car you designed for yourself.
That, yeah, it may have happened. I frankly can't recall if it did or not. It may have been more like, we're going to do it.
Sounds true. You know what?
It sounds true.
It sounds true. I think we've peaked it. It sounds true. So
yeah.
The last thing I want to leave with is, if you had a Ford Bronco, do you think it would be funnier to convert it to electricity or LS swap it?
It would be funnier to put an LS in it. I mean,
you know, biofuel, man, E85. We can keep this thing pretty green.
Yeah, I would still try. I guess the only reason that it would be harder to do any type of an electric swap is that based on the drivetrain, based on how they designed it, there's nowhere to put the batteries except for like in the back.
The only way you could do it is you would put the batteries where the ICE and the transmission is, and you would do in-wheel motors, and you'd do Ford.
Oh,
that's the only way.
Yeah.
It would be, and especially in a rock crawler, because then you would have traction and torque literally right where you need it, and the mass of the motor would give you tremendous traction. I think that would be a decent project car. I'm
not going to put it past Ford to say, what if they came out with some cool electric version of the Bronco for like the SEMA show? Say like,
that's something.
So I think that this is kind of pre-Mach-E-ish. So yeah.
Right. So we have the Mach-E. Maybe this is the Bronchi.
And with that, folks, we're going to wrap it up.
All right. I think we've got a show. We'll edit out that last part. That was embarrassing.
Oh my God, no, we have to keep that because it happened and it's unbelievably.
Right now, there's 3 guys at Ford scrambling, going, they know the name. We have to change it.
The Bronchi is coming. I will say, though, when I did see how many people were going ape about it, I did find that one clip from Groundhog's Day when he gets out of the car and he's all dressed up like a cowboy and she's dressed up as like a French maid. And she's like, Phil, I've already seen this movie. He's like, I told you, call me Bronco. Okay, Bronco. That's exactly what's happening right now with everybody. It's like, I'm Bronco.
All right. I think that is where we peak. We'll see you guys next week when we will talk about other stuff. And for those of you paying attention, we did not talk about Nikola this week. I think that's a first.
Good for them. We'll see what happens next week.
We'll see what happens next week. Awesome.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Electrify podcast. Be sure to find out more information about Electrify Expo on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn to get information on all things e-mobility. We'll see you next week.